Fordham University. So she's an assistant professor in the natural sciences department. And, you know, we have people here that are not only just looking for resources for getting into school, but also, you know, what do you do after you graduate? You know, where do you go and where will you be welcomed?
Hi, thank you for inviting me to talk to you. I think this is a really important time to talk about how to increase numbers in STEM fields, particularly for Native people. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk to the young people. I think I'm gearing this towards different levels: high school students, undergrad students, and some students who are ready to maybe think about graduate school. So this is sort of going to be like a class, let's say, in that I really need you to keep in mind some things that I feel have helped me in my quest to really become a scientist and eventually an academic. And that I know, based on my experience with working with young people at the undergraduate level and graduate level, are steps that need to be taken, explicit steps that need to be taken to get to a point where you achieve success in science. And what that means is having a permanent position in a scientific environment. And so it's sort of like homework. And some of you young people might want to take some of these things down as I'm saying them. And they're just very simple things that I've learned by experience and through my mentors. And one of those things that's very important in terms of getting where you want to be, and this is just in general, not just in STEM, is embracing who you are, okay? Who we are as a people is integral to the success we will achieve eventually. And so what I mean by that is that you will find yourself at some point surrounded by people whom have a perception of who you are that's not necessarily the best, okay? But you must have a perception of who you are that's based on your strength. So who you are as a Native people is actually your strength, and you have to garnish that, right? You have to embrace that, first of all, no matter what level you're in. So find your inner strength in that sense. Second, you know, yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do on your own, independently. You have to have that fire that allows you to overcome obstacles. But in addition to that fire and those steps that you will take as an independent person who has a goal, is that you need to find advocates, okay? But most importantly, you have to be your own advocate. Okay, so what I find many times, especially in the field of science, is that students sometimes don't speak up for themselves for fear of many different fears. I mean, so no matter what, whether you're at the high school level trying to get to college, or you're at the undergraduate level trying to achieve highly in college, or you're ready for grad school and you want to get there, you have to be your own advocate. It means you basically have to become much more assertive maybe than you're used to, and really reach out to people who can help you. Okay, so there's many different fields that you're going to hear about, but in particular in the STEM field, it's important to speak up and get the help you need. Another thing that I think many of you already know, but that I'm going to emphasize here, is that in order to get to where you're going to work twice as hard as everybody else, okay? So you will always have to work twice as hard as everybody else. And you have to embrace that also. Be ready for it, okay? You have to find mentors, okay? So embrace yourself, be your own advocate, work twice as hard, but also find mentors that are gonna reach out to you and help uplift you and help guide you when you need. And in science, that means finding people that are already at the higher level than you are right now. Okay, so if you're different levels will require different mentors. Okay, so let's talk about who you are now, right? And how that impacts how you can get to a STEM field. How you can be an engineer, a doctor, a scientist, etc. So who you are now, where you live, the school you go to, who is surrounding you, the people that, you know, advise you, all those things are your presence, and you can't change that, okay? But what you can do is have a realistic idea of what your environment now has to offer and what you need to change if something needs to change, which in our case, a lot of times there are things that need to change. What you can do to change that, the things that will maybe be blocks in your progress towards being in the STEM field. So, for example, you think of who you are now, and then you have to think about who you are in the future, where you want to go, okay? And so when you think about where you want to go, you can't just see what's in front of you, right? You have to go beyond that. You have to look at the unexpected. You have to strive for what people don't expect you to be, in a way, right? So one of the problems that this whole webinar is addressing is how do we increase the number of Native people in STEM fields? Well, guess what? When I look around, I don't see any scientists that are Native, right? I don't see professors that are Native in STEM fields. So that is reaching for the unexpected, but it is attainable. Okay, you have to reach for that unexpected, for what's beyond what you know right now and what you see. Okay, so how do we get there? I got this advice many years ago, and I followed this advice to the T. And the first thing you have to do is write down your goals. Who do you want to be? Okay. People who write down their goals are people who are going to achieve their goals. Okay. So you have to explicitly take a piece of paper that you're going to stare at often and write down those goals. Now, those goals have to be short-term goals and long-term goals. So it's what we call a strategy, a goal strategy. In 1 year, where do I see myself? That's a goal. In 5 years, where do I see myself? In 10 years, where do I see myself? Where you see yourself has to be explicitly written so you can take the steps required, as some of the people before me have spoken about, in order to achieve those goals. So strategy means A, identify what you want to achieve short-term and long-term. And once you've identified that, you take the steps, not last minute, because sometimes we tend to do that, but take the steps that you need to do to achieve those short-term goals that are eventually going to lead you to your long-term goals. So your homework, you have homework today, no matter what level you're at, is to write down your goals and put them in a big piece of paper, not the smallest letter, the biggest piece of paper you can find, and stare at that for a while, because that's your reality. It's something that you can achieve with working twice as hard, embracing who you are and finding your inner strength, and finding mentors that can help you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about finding mentors, right? Or looking beyond what you see in front of you. Okay, if you're at the high school level, what you usually encounter is advisor. Okay, you can't just get that advice. You have to go above, you have to go online. The beauty about these days is that information is accessible to you. Okay, you go online and you look at the colleges closest to you. Okay, and you find scientists or academics that are in the science department, and you have to be your own advocate and write to these people and say, I am either a high school student interested in becoming a scientist, an engineer, etc. I am a college student interested in, I would be interested in meeting with you to talk about the possibility of me getting to my goals. And I think you can help me. And you're gonna have to write a lot of those letters until you find somebody that can be your advocate too, okay? So you have to find mentors. Mentors in the STEM field are the ones that are gonna guide you through these intricate things that nobody tells you about until you get here, okay? If you wanna be a doctor, find doctors in hospitals that you can mirror, okay? Because then it's not looking at just what's in front of you and imagining what's beyond you, right? Then it's actually reaching out to people that are beyond you. And they don't have to be Native people, because then we won't find anybody, right? There can be anybody that you basically are calling on them. Many people have the intention of helping, but don't, because it's just not happening. But if you are in their face and you're asking for help, it'll be very difficult for somebody to say no, okay? So let's see. Another thing that I really want to talk about is once you get to college or once you get to graduate school, okay? So first we got to get to college, right? One of the biggest problems that we encounter as minorities, as Native people, is that we are in institutions that don't offer proper preparation in math and science, okay? Some people have already talked about. And what I have to tell you is that if you're in one of these institutions and you feel there's a lack of preparedness, again, there are programs out there that will help you prepare yourself better, okay? So the beauty of this society now is that you can go online and find these institutions. Go ahead and Google bridge programs for high school students, undergraduate students, graduate students. Summer academies for high school students, etc. So it's going to be really hard for me or anybody else in this panel to give you exactly a website, although I have them if you'd like to email me. But you can actually, there's local programs within your area, okay, that offer these programs. And many people, like myself, when I was younger, I didn't know about these programs. Nobody told me. Okay, but now there's no excuse. You can go out and find these programs and apply to them. And they don't have to be programs geared to Native people or just minorities. You just throw yourself out there and apply to everything you can. Okay, and once you're ready to apply for college, you apply for college depending on, you know, where you are. Sometimes you realize, I really want to do science, but you haven't been able to take the steps that you had to in order to get, let's say, into Harvard, etc. That's okay, okay? Because there's a diversity of institutions that want you, okay? But you have to apply to all tiers of institution. You have to apply for the dream schools, you have to apply for the middle tier schools, and you have to apply for your local schools. Sometimes you have to apply to community colleges, for example. Okay, and your goal, if you get into a community college or any of these colleges, okay, here's the key. Your goal is not to survive. Your goal is to thrive. So at the community college level, you have to reach for the highs, okay? And your goal at the community college level is to transfer to a four-year institution. Okay, if you're at an undergraduate four-year institution, your goal is to thrive. But here's the problem, right? Attrition. In college, there are many students, Native people and minorities, who actually get into colleges. But the problem is, in STEM fields, there's a lot of attrition. That means there's a lot of students who eventually drop out of these programs. And the main reason for this is lack of preparation in high school. So you must be your own advocate and get help. So for example, here at Fordham, There's a C-STEP program that basically provides all kinds of help for the undergraduates in the science field, okay, tutoring, etc. But hey, also me, let's say you're not doing great in my class, it happens, right? What do? We have this problem as Native people, as minorities, where many times we're in an environment like this, an academic environment, we have what we call imposter syndrome. I'm here, but oh my God, I'm so scared. Am I gonna survive, right? This is something that happens at all levels, even at my level, okay? But what you have to do is you have to get help immediately, okay? Be your own advocate and get help. That means if you're my student and you just started college and you weren't prepared in high school, okay, you get a C in your first exam, you have to come to me or any other professor and say, I want to do better in this class. And you come to me not in your first exam, right? Actually, you come to me before that, because I am the person, or your professors are the people that are going to be able to best help you get that C to a B or B to an A, etc. So you have to be very intense about what you want to do and reach out for the help that actually is available to you. Your college professors get paid to help you, okay? So you have to be able to, I'm sorry, I have to look at the time, to be your own advocate in that sense. To get into graduate school, the same thing. You have this imposter syndrome. Oh my God, do I belong? And other people will look at you and ask themselves, do they belong? Okay? And your job, really, if I can give you any advice, okay, is that you have to work twice as hard, yes, but you have to be your own advocate, and you have to find mentors. And you have to basically call upon those mentors, put them on the spot, and have them help you. I could go on and on about all the other very specific advices, but I think this is, what I most have to offer.
I think looking at the individual steps and breaking them down and saying, I have big steps to do, but there's little steps between the big steps. That's the way I always look at it. There's these little steps that are in between the big steps, and they lead to the next one. So you have to be very patient. I think Gary Lightfoot talked about that somewhat as well. So I want to turn it to the audience and say, do you have any questions? There are young people here who are in college or have just graduated. What questions do you have? And do these things apply? Because a lot of the advice that you're giving are things that I do, and I'm not in college any longer, but I use the same steps to get ahead myself when I'm completing something. I look for mentors.
It's a universal type of advice, but that actually works really well in science. The problem in science is keeping the students in the program, okay? Students who have been in, high schools that didn't prepare them, come to college excited, but, sometimes because of lack of preparation, don't always achieve the A+. And I'm not saying you're failing. I'm saying if you're here and you're getting a B, you want to go for the A+ all the time, because that's what it's going to take for you to get into graduate school, for you to get into medical school, for you to get into engineering school. So those little steps that Melissa was just talking about are really the daily steps. I must make an appointment to see the professor, or I must get a tutor, things that but you have to actually do. Okay, and over the long term, those small steps, when you look at your goals that you've written down, where do I see myself in 1 year? If you're, a senior in college, okay? I see myself applying to grad school. Well, what are the steps that I need to do? First of all, you have to ace your classes, okay? Or get as close. That's the reality in science. You must ace your classes. And in order to do that, you can do it, but you're gonna need help. And I don't mean somebody studying for you. I mean somebody guiding you, because we come here, all students come here not knowing exactly what to do. Okay, so you need to take those, small, short steps to get to the big goal.
What about when people feel overwhelmed, when, you know, there's just too many assignments and the deadlines are coming up really quickly? How do you get through that? Do you just breathe 10 times and say, trust God? I mean, what do you do?
I think that comes with strategy. You have to have a strategy of doing things before the deadline. I find that many students cram. Okay, it's something that they get used to, preparing at the last minute. And the way your brain works, I'm actually a neuroscientist, your brain cannot hold that amount of information for very long. So you have to be very proactive in the way that you prepare yourself. That means if you have a class today, you have to study for that class this afternoon or this evening. You can't wait until next week when it's time for the test, etc. You have to force yourself to not be a procrastinator and the complete opposite, because the amount of work that you get in college is a lot, because every professor is going to give you assignments. So don't procrastinate, right? And that's easy to say, but you're like fresh. The world is your oyster. So you can get out of those habits and get yourself to a point where you prepare in advance, because once you do that and you get into class and there's a quiz, there's this comfort level that comes with preparedness and doing well that reinforces your self esteem and your ability to do the work. So the next time you do the same thing and you get those great results, it sort of reinforces this high achieving type of behavior. So the behavior that you take is what's going to allow you to achieve high. You had a question?
Yes, thank you. Supposing I've taken a number of these steps, I was particularly a stellar student. So now I am saying, gee, I really need to be this neuroscientist. However, I barely got through English 101. What do I do to pick up my skill set?
Okay, that's, again, what you do is there are many resources out there for students that are not being, that students don't know about and don't use as opportunities to grow. So that I find happens a lot. Like, you try your best, but on your own, you can't do it. Okay, you're still gonna get the C, for example. So you have to go out there and you have to go either at your college level and seek out the organizations that have money. There are the resources for them to help you either get tutors, okay, or have prep classes in the summertime that allow you to bypass some of these barriers, right, that you're going to encounter. So yes, there are times when you're going to try your hardest and it's not enough. That's true. And that has to do a lot with the background we come with, right? But what you have to do is that you have to seek out resources that are going to allow you to balance that imbalance that exists between people who have a lot and have come, from schools that are private schools or prepare them well versus you. And the only way to do that is to seek out, use extra time in the summer, for example, before you get to college, before you get to grad school, to further prepare yourself. There's a lot of master's programs, for example, from people who just finished graduating college, that allow you to help you catch up to the rest of the field, so that by the time you get into grad school or med school, you've already overcome those learning barriers that you had there before that didn't allow you to thrive your best. So the idea is you can't do it on your own. And that's why in the STEM fields, you have to have advocates and mentors that have all this information they can give you. But if you don't speak up, if you're just a little mouse that's trying as hard as you can, working twice or 3 or 4 times as hard, it's not going to happen because you don't know enough to get through it on your own. And that's the reality.
Thank you so much. Is there any way that we can stay in touch with you and, just get this kind of advice? Because, you do it once, but it's nice to know that you can follow up.
Yeah, I mean, you can get in touch with me through my email.